Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, yes, please.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauravakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So, with the permission of Pravatinandan Prabhu, I will speak on his behalf today. Today we are discussing 10.19. Is that correct, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, yes, it's correct.
Okay, so today we are discussing 10.19. We'll just read the verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Hantate Kataishyami Divyahi Atma Vibhutayaha Pradhanyatah Kurushreshta Nasti Anto Vistarasya Me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. So, we are in this chapter, which is the 10th chapter, which is called the opulence of the Absolute. And here, last verse, you would have heard Arjuna asking Krishna to talk about his mystic powers, about his opulences, because he's never satisfied hearing about Krishna. So this is the mood of a devotee. That mood will continue in Prabhupada's explanation or purports also. So let's see this verse. This is a very interesting verse. The Lord is saying, I will tell you my splendorous manifestation, but only of those which are prominent, because my opulence is limitless. So this is the definition of God. God means not, something which is very, very like someone can simply solve our problem in the stomach, some pain in the stomach, then someone solves that and then we call him God, right? A doctor can do that. So like this, there are many misunderstanding of who God is. Someone who helps someone make some money or some wealth, then you call, it's God for me. There's no God for me, God for you. God for everyone is one. So this understanding is very important. So let's try to dwell a little deeper into this one. The first and foremost thing which Prabhupada explains is this, one cannot actually comprehend the greatness of Krishna. So that's the clear statement. That means don't take God cheaply. That is the first point that we need to understand. We know about the 6 opulences, all that. I'm not going into those. But God is someone who, if you can put a limitless personality, then that personality is called God. That is the understanding. And if that is the highest level of understanding, then someone who's favorable, who really gets this concept, how will he be? Then he is able to, assume theoretically we understand there is someone like this. Then if you accept that, then your mood will be, yeah, what else can he do? What else can he do? What else can he do? Can he do, I would like to hear him, he would have done something extraordinary. I want to hear about that greatness. We all have this ability to admire people who have really achieved big things. Here is the person who has achieved anything and everything that is ever possible in this, in this material and spiritual world, and anything that will ever be possible in anything that ever existed or will ever exist. That is the kind of the personality. When you are thinking of such a personality, then you are actually so much attracted, you will go on hearing more. Just like in this thing, Arjuna is saying, I am so much eager to hear about your, I can't stop hearing about you. So now Prabhupada explains this is the mood in which a devotee actually looks at the whole thing. That means he does not feel, oh, how can he do it? This is, this is not possible. Let me apply my intelligent mind to actually to put you down. That is the mood of someone who does not fully accept or understand the limitless ability of the Lord. But one who understands that, then he is fully in awe and reverence, that, oh my Lord, what a great achievement. How you are able to do this, so beautiful, amazing. These kind of words is what they will be saying, and they will be more and more eager to understand this, to see and experience the Lord's greatness rather than try to understand it, the logic behind how he does it or whatever like that. Contrast this to someone who's a non-believer. For him, he cannot understand anything. Like, in the sense, there is a beautiful word used here, which is called vibhutayaha. In the first line, divyahi atma vibhutayaha. So that Prabhupada explains, this word vibhuta means exceptional opulence. Now, when you are seeing some exceptional talent, sometimes you think, oh, I can't believe this. And those people who are actually sort of envious, or those people who are who want to rely more on the logic and their intelligence, then they sort of become impersonal. That means basically we call such people who do not believe on in the personality called Krishna, and they somehow think that the Lord is something different than the personality called Krishna. We call them impersonalists. That means, they don't give the Lord a form. They don't want to accept Krishna in a form because they think this is the person who is limitless cannot have a form which is limiting in their brain. The form is actually a limiting factor. So they think this is not. Now, this word which is being used as the exceptional opulence is something which is so great that this for this impersonalists, it is something which they cannot comprehend. So that exceptional opulence of the Lord actually covers their intelligence. So much so that they actually take away the personality of Godhead from the picture and then call that God as some power. But a devotee who is actually favorable to the Lord, for him the Lord's exceptional opulence does not cover him, and therefore he is able to see, oh, this beautiful small boy can actually lift that big hill. Yes, that is possible, he will think. But this fellow will say, how can he do it? He's only 6-year-old. He cannot. He will put all the physics and chemistry and see how it is possible for a small this much of space to actually balance it like this, and how he can lift it. So you can actually this finger actually the left one. So like that, they will start using that exceptional opulence will actually cover it. So that is something which we need to understand. The other point here is the Lord's abilities are so very vast and limitless that nobody can really understand. In Bhagavatam, there are many verses which talks about that the Lord's abilities are something which nobody can understand. And Prabhupada always writes, a devotee can understand some bit of it. Not that he can understand also fully, but he can understand some portion of it. But an atheist or an impersonalist cannot even understand that much of it, and he will completely be lost. This is the other important thing. One quick example of how a devotee versus someone who's actually an impersonalist or someone who's lost in the speculative thinking. There was one. I'll keep the story very short, but to give the essence of it. So once Narada Muni, he was supposed to the Lord will send him, and there's some discussion about who's a great devotee, and there will be one cobbler and then there will be one Brahmana. So the Lord will say, this cobbler is a great devotee, but that Brahmana who's very well learned in the scriptures, who can literally memorize and quote the verses from left to right, rather from right to left, like that. He, so very expert in all these scriptures like that, he'll be there. So Narada will naturally expect that Narada Muni that, okay, this Brahmana who's very well qualified in the Vedas and all is actually should be the better devotee, whereas this cobbler is not. So the Lord will say, I will give you one simple test to determine who's the better of the two. So he will say, you go and meet these two gentlemen and tell them that when they ask how's the Lord doing, actually they will ask, right? Narada Muni comes, then Narada Muni has audience with the Lord. So they will ask, how is the Lord doing? You have to tell them that the Lord is actually passing a cow through the needle, through the eye of the needle. So you tell them this, the Lord is actually doing this when I saw him last. So he will go to the Brahmana first, and then nice exchanges, Brahmana, very good etiquettes. He welcomes him nicely, washes his legs, everything. And then he says, oh, great Muni, how are you? Then he says, how is the Lord? You would have met him, what is he doing? Then he says, the Lord actually, when I last met him, he was actually passing a cow through the eye of the needle. What? The Lord passing a cow through the eye of the needle? No, that cannot be possible. Did you see clearly like that? He starts asking, that is not possible. I know he's Lord, but then how can you pass the cow through the eye of the needle? It is not possible. So Narada Muni will say, okay, I have observed this. Then he will finish his section and he'll go to the cobbler. So the cobbler is not a very great thing. He welcomes him. He says, Hare Krishna, and then how is the Lord doing? So the cobbler, when he asks this, Narada Muni will say the same thing. Actually, the Lord was actually passing the cow through the eye of the needle. Then he says, wow, amazing, is it not? How can someone pass the cow through the eye of the needle? Only he can do it, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Amazing. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy that you got to see this like that, he will say. And he will understand, but how is it logical? I just told possibly, why are you believing this? He said, no, why you can't believe this? He will say, now the Lord, can you see this big banyan tree here in which, nearby, they're sitting. This banyan tree is such a huge one, and that was put inside a small seed by the Supreme Lord. And then, from the small seed only came this banyan tree. So when that is possible, why will not the cow be passed through the eye of the needle by the Supreme Lord? He will say like this. So this is that shows the greatness of this cobbler, that he's actually someone who's able to understand the opulence of the Lord. Of course, not fully, that it's always there. And while the Brahmana, however learned he is, he's not able to understand the opulence of the Lord. So the Lord's opulence is so big. And here the other word that the Lord uses is Pradhan yataha. That means, yes, I am only explaining the principal ones, the top ones. But that doesn't mean he is limited to only these things. That it is all a question of, if you want to perceive the Lord, you can actually perceive him in different ways, because you can see everywhere it is only Krishna. There's nothing else in this material world. Everything is Krishna. Therefore, we can perceive him through any of these opulences of the Lord, and whatever we see, whatever great things we see, everything is actually the representation of the Supreme Personality, manifestation of that Supreme Personality's energy, which we are actually able to see. And therefore, these are very, very limited, to the extent that the Lord himself does not know what is his limit. Can you believe this? Prabhupada actually is writing in one place, or I read it, I think, in Prabhupada Leelamrita only, I think, where Prabhupada is saying, actually, the Lord's limits are so vast that he himself is bewildered. He is trying to go and find out the edge of his limits, and he actually finds that out, and then suddenly it becomes more, and he is not able to find the further limit. Then he actually finds it more, and then he knows at that point in time, but again later in a minute or a fraction of a second, he doesn't know, because his opulences have expanded. So he's such limitless ability that the Lord has, and therefore we can only simply relish in this beautiful pastimes in whatever he does so wonderfully, and that is the mode of the devotee. So with this, I will end. If there are anything more, Ravitinathan can add for 5 minutes time. If I had missed out anything that he had captured, we can listen from him.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.